You've heard it on the news a million times, right? An earthquake hits and it's a magnitude 7.8 on the Richter scale. That phrase sounds so precise, so scientific, and honestly, a little terrifying. But what are we actually talking about? What does that number really mean?
So yeah, when you hear a number like that, what is it truly telling us about the raw, incredible power of the Earth moving right under our feet? It's way more than just a score. So let's dig into the story of how we even got the system we use today.
You know, before we had a solid mathematical way to do this, figuring out how strong an earthquake actually was, well, it was a bit of a guessing game. It relied a lot less on data and a whole lot more on what people happened to see.
Back in the early 1900s, the main tool they had was something called the Mercalli scale. And get this, it didn't use any instruments to measure the ground shaking. Nope, it was based entirely on what people felt and the damage they saw with their own eyes.
The whole Mercalli system was completely subjective. You'd get a level 12, for example, if you could actually see cracks opening up in the ground. But that created a huge problem. An earthquake could be rated a 12 right at the epicenter, but just a few miles away, it might have only felt like an 8. So the scale wasn't measuring the earthquake's total energy, its true magnitude. It was just measuring the local intensity of the shaking.
And that was the big shift that seismology desperately needed. The whole field had to move away from this subjective, observation-based system to one that was objective, mathematical, and driven by hard data. The goal was to stop measuring local intensity and start measuring true magnitude.
And this is where the hero of our story enters the picture.
Meet Dr. Charles Francis Richter. He was a theoretical physicist working over at Caltech's seismological lab. His job was to try and make sense of all this messy, inconsistent data from the old Mercalli system, and he just became convinced there had to be a smarter, more scientific way to do it.
So that conviction led Richter and his colleague right into a massive data problem. But it turns out, solving that one problem led to one of the biggest breakthroughs in the history of seismology.
Okay, so Richter and his colleague, Dr. Gutenberg, were using seismographs. Those are the instruments that actually record the ground shaking. But they immediately hit a wall. The difference in energy between a tiny little tremor and a giant, massive quake was so astronomical that when they tried to plot it on a normal graph, the numbers were literally flying right off the page. It was impossible to compare them.
And in that moment of total frustration came the big aha moment. It was actually Dr. Gutenberg who made a really simple but totally game-changing suggestion. Make the graphs logarithmic. So what on earth does that mean? Well, it's a genius way to manage a huge range of numbers. On a logarithmic scale, every single whole number you go up, say from a 4 to a 5, represents a 10-fold increase in the shaking. But here's the part that'll really bake your noodle. That 10-fold increase in shaking equals about a 32-fold increase in the total energy being released. That was the secret sauce.
Armed with this incredible mathematical tool, Richter could finally start building a standardized system that would work for any earthquake anywhere on the planet.
And this wasn't just some theory, okay? Richter got to work. He painstakingly plotted the data from hundreds and hundreds of different earthquakes using his new logarithmic method. And what he found was incredible. They all followed the exact same pattern. He had discovered a universal, standard curve for earthquake energy.
So the evolution is pretty clear, right? We went from that shaky, subjective Mercalli scale to 1935, when the Richter scale was officially born. And look, while seismology has definitely advanced, that core logarithmic idea is still the foundation of what we use today. Modern scientists often use what's called the moment magnitude scale now, which is even more accurate for those really huge quakes, but it's still built on Richter's fundamental idea.
All right, so we've got the science down. But now let's put these numbers into perspective so we can really understand the awesome power we're talking about.
Check out this wild fact. On any given day, our planet experiences something like 9,000 earthquakes. The vast majority of them are less than a magnitude 3, so small and deep we never even feel them. It just goes to show you, our world is basically in a constant state of tremble. And this is where that logarithmic scale really blows your mind. The jump from a magnitude 4 to a 5 means 10 times more ground shaking. Okay, but the jump from a 4 to a 6? That's not 20 times stronger, it's 100 times stronger. And the energy release? A magnitude 6 unleashes nearly 1,000 times more raw energy than a magnitude 4. The power just ramps up incredibly fast.
So what's the biggest one we've ever seen? Well, the most powerful earthquake of the entire 20th century hit Chile back in 1960. It measured a colossal 9.5 on the scale. I mean, the amount of pure energy unleashed in that single event is it's almost impossible to even wrap your head around.
So we've gone from just relying on what we could see with our own eyes to having this precise scale that measures the invisible energy of our planet. Charles Richter gave us the tools to measure earthquakes with incredible accuracy. But all this progress just leaves us with the next giant question, the next great challenge. Now that we can measure them, will we ever be able to predict them?